Good morning, conference, and welcome to day 2 of the founding conference of Your Party Scotland. And what a day we had yesterday. We actually, for the first time in any party, political, or trade union conference I've ever been to, we finished ahead of schedule, which is just fantastic. So welcome back to day 2, and we've got a lot to get through. Welcome to those of you who are joining online on the Zoom as well. Before we do kick off, I thought I would just remind you all of some of the key housekeeping points from yesterday. I know we've got some new faces here in person today who weren't here yesterday. If fire alarm does go off, it's not a drill. Please do exit via any of the fire exits labelled with the signs, and the evacuation point is just outside the tower building, just in that direction outside this building. I also thought I would just go through the results of the votes that we did yesterday. We got through so many options and amendments, and you voted, and we have the results. So, the first vote that we did yesterday on leadership conference, you voted 61.47% in support of collective leadership of Your Party Scotland. With regards to the organisational autonomy of Your Party Scotland, conference 59.16% of you voted to engage and consult with the CEC to present an option for becoming an organisationally independent sister party of Your Party UK. Conference on the SEC, 55% of you voted for us to have one SEC rep, per Scottish Parliament region, plus another 8 on an all Scotland ballot. On national, absolutely applaud that. On national offices, 79.87% of you voted for national officers to be elected not by the SEC, but directly by the membership. Conference in the standing orders on internal party elections, you voted for us to use single transferable voting, 78.42% of you. On candidates for public office, 73.91% of you voted for candidates for public office to be able to stand for selection unimpeded without seconders. On term limits, 76.34% of you voted for term limits for public and party office holders. On local policy development, 70% of you voted for local policy to come through our local assemblies and at meetings of the local branch. On trade union affiliation, 81.48% of you voted in support of the SEC developing a process for trade unions to affiliate to Your Party Scotland. And finally, the last vote of yesterday, 82.11% of you voted for a presumption of dual membership with a blacklist rather than a whitelist, and for no member to be prevented from joining Your Party Scotland until the SEC has created that list. So conference, we got through a lot yesterday, and we made some big and significant decisions, and we've got more of that to come. Just this morning, we're going to be voting on our party's approach to the national question, and we're going to be voting on our approach to the Holyrood elections this year. So, without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker of this morning, the co-founder of Your Party UK and MP for Islington North, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you. Thanks very much, and thank you for inviting me. And first of all, absolute well done to all those that organised this conference. Carrie was telling me this morning the amount of work that's been put in by volunteers to get this conference up and running, to get it organised, to get the delegates here, and to get the papers ready, and all the decisions that you made yesterday. Absolutely brilliant. Well done. Full of admiration for you for that. And obviously, I am very clear and fully understand that it is a decision for Scotland, in Scotland, by Scottish members, what the form the party should take in Scotland. Obviously, we work together at a UK level, that's obvious, but I fully understand that, and I'm very interested to see what the outcome of the vote is this morning on presumably demanding or otherwise a second referendum. And as far as I'm concerned, I've always had the position that if the people in Scotland and the Scottish organisations want a referendum to decide the future of Scotland, that is their choice. It should not be determined by the UK government in Westminster. And I think we have to make that very, very clear indeed. And it's great to be here in Dundee, an amazing city with an amazing past of labour movement, solidarity and organisation. And I see the work that we do in our party, your party, my party, the party, whatever, you know, as one that carries on that tradition of trade union and working class solidarity, of solidarity across national borders and international solidarity that goes with it. The struggles of the jute workers for decency and recognition, the struggles of shipyard workers and so many others for decency and recognition. And who can ever forget the struggle of the Timex workers to try to defend their jobs and their industry in Dundee. And the sadness is, at that time and at other times, we had Scottish and UK governments that were lacking in the ambition and the perception of how you could develop and extend and retain serious industry such as Motorola, such as Timex and others, and Michelin for that matter as well. And so it is important that in the development of our party we do take very seriously the need for developing our own economic policy and economic strategy, which does involve industrial democracy, that does involve workers' control, that is about public ownership, but not old-style public ownership with a patronage appointment of a national board, but instead democratic public ownership with workers' involvement, community involvement, local authority involvement and all that, which guarantees public ownership against the dangers of privatisation in the future. We need that sense. We need that sense of imagination of what goes with it. And what I've also been impressed by with Dundee is not just the history of the city and the brilliance of it. And indeed, on a previous visit, I went to see the grave of Caroline Martin, who was a great socialist orator of the 19th century, who interestingly has a council estate block named after her in my constituency. And I was always puzzled why Caroline Martin should be remembered in my part of North London. And she's remembered because of what a great orator she was. And she was very young, and she died and is buried in the cemetery here. And I went to see her, and well done the Trades Council in ensuring that her memorial remains in place. But also, the sense of internationalism goes a long way, because those that profited from the jute industry and others also had interests in the slave trade and slavery in the Caribbean and other places. It's that history we also need to remember, of the way in which the capitalist ruling classes all over the UK made a great deal of money out of the Caribbean. And I want, as we develop international policies for your party, to take seriously, absolutely seriously, the question of how we deal with the legacy and history of the slave trade and the wealth that was made out of the slave trade, and ensure that there is proper compensation, proper payments and proper support for the victims, even now, historically in the Caribbean and other places. And indeed, I've been involved in that campaign. And I first met, wait for this, I first met George Galloway many years ago when he was the Labour agent in Dundee. And obviously I've known George for many, many years, and like everyone else who knows and loves George, you have your ups, you have your downs. But you love George for it all the same. But the thing I would never, ever take away from George, what he did then, since and now, in absolute support of the people of Palestine, and he showed that solidarity. And Dundee was one of the early places to actually stand up for the people of Palestine, and I remember Jim Malone telling me about taking a fire tender to Palestine, which ended up months and months in the docks in Israel, but eventually got through. Well done, Scottish FPU, on their work for Palestine and their support for it. To say last week in Parliament was an interesting week would be something of an understatement. The Epstein files have come out. Mandelson's involvement in the Epstein files has come out. And obviously the Labour government's very existence is in a perilous position at the moment because of all of this. But this isn't an exciting moment in political theatre and drama. It is actually the product of something much, much longer in the battle of ideas and debate within the Labour Party, within the trade unions, within our society. When Labour turned away from the principles of public ownership, of redistribution of wealth and power, started to embrace new realism in the 1980s after the miners' strike, and then when John Smith died, we then had Blair and Mandelson deeply involved in the development of the direction and policies of the Labour Party. Their whole purpose and their whole determination was to turn Labour into a market-orientated, pro-US foreign policy organisation and party. I'm not saying that everything that the Labour Party stood for before that was necessarily of the left or particularly socialist, but there was a clear line where you could see the golden thread of socialist ideas within it. There was a systematic attempt to destroy all of that. And the Blair government brought in private finance initiative, brought in market forces in local government and health in all parts of the UK, predominantly in England, but in all parts of the UK, and developed a foreign policy which we very well know about, which was, of course, supporting the US in its wars in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And we remember all of that. Throughout all of that period, the malign influence of Mandelson and his acolytes and this unseemly relationship between the right of the Labour Party, big money and big business, and media that were sympathetic to them. Remember the way in which the Murdoch media embraced Blair and New Labour, embraced the move to the right, embraced the move towards a market economic system. And so it didn't all happen in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It didn't all happen just with the Epstein files. There's something there in the background. So, as we develop as an organisation and a party, to remember the importance of understanding the historical importance that we have at the present time, which is to put up a serious economic alternative to free market economics that destroys industries and lives in so many places, that destroys industries in Dundee, that destroyed the mining industry and destroyed so much manufacturing, and has often left behind a legacy of poverty, dislocation, drug usage and mental health depression in so many parts of our society. It's up to us to be that collective, coherent force in the community that enthuses, unites and excites people. That is the answer to the racism of reform and those that would seek to divide our society. Working class unity to achieve real political change within our society. And so you then look at the issues that are faced. Poverty. Look at the issues that are faced in education and so much else. But let's deal with the poverty at the present time. The Labour government came in 18 months ago, and I was in Parliament when Ian Duncan Smith introduced the 2-child benefit cap on benefits for families in receipt of universal credit. Bizarrely, he did that because when he became the Tories' opposition spokesperson and then eventually a minister, he decided that he was very concerned about poverty in the country, so he went to Glasgow to visit the East End. Well, I suppose that's a good thing, I don't know. I don't know how he was received when he got there. But he then concluded there was a lot of poverty in the East End of Glasgow. Wow. He'd obviously had a very careful visit to work all that out. And then came back and decided that a lot of families were very poor. Yeah. There certainly were and certainly are. So his conclusion was, it was like Malthus. The problem is there's too many people. So if we punish large families, there won't be any large families in the future. So he had this unbelievably horrible idea that we would take benefits away from the third, fourth, fifth, or however many children there were in a family, in order to punish the family for being too big, in order to encourage them not to have so many children in the future. What kind of immorality is that? What kind of 19th century thought is that? How disgusting is that? And then it could and should have been ended there and then, in July 24. It wasn't. It was only after a significant campaign that eventually the government came up with the bill they did, which went through last week. Okay, I agree with the bill as far as it goes, except it doesn't end the global weekly cap on benefits. So it means that 25,000 more children across the UK will no longer receive benefits because they fall outside of the global cap on a family household income. So they haven't solved the problem. They've helped a lot of children, yes, good, but they've left some out. And it seems they don't understand this. In exactly the same way that personal independence payments were put under threat. They announced they were going to save £5 billion in personal independence payments and take it away from many of those people in receipt of it. That created, obviously, huge opposition. I called a public meeting.
Recording stop. Recording in progress.
I'm glad about that. I hope you're recording from the very beginning. They then said they would take it all away, created a huge opposition to it. I called a public meeting in my own constituency of our monthly forums, and a lot of people came who were in receipt of PIP. It was heartbreaking, heartbreaking. They were describing how, if they didn't receive the personal independence of payments, they lived on their own. How were they able to go to the bathroom on their own? How could they prepare food? How could they look after themselves? How could they dress themselves? Basic human needs and human instincts. The government eventually, under a lot of pressure, backed off and then said it would be for the next generation of recipients, then backed off on that and put it all on hold, while an inquiry is taking place, led by the Minister Stephen Timms, with civil service support. Well, I don't trust this inquiry, I don't trust the assessment, because when Liz Kendall introduced the whole thing, she said they were going to save £5 billion, and also went on to say this was because the government needed to spend a lot more money on arms and weapons and defence for the future. Well, given the choice, I know what choice I'd make, and I know what choice everyone in this hall would make, given that sort of choice. And so here's the thing. We're a big party. We've got across the UK just shy of 60,000 members, and no doubt we're going to get many, many more. We've got lots of friends and lots of supporters all over the country. That will include many people who are in receipt of a whole range of benefits, including personal independence payments. How about this? That we set up our own commission, peopled entirely by those in receipt of disability benefits, to look at the levels of poverty within that community and look at the levels of needs within that community. Because if we don't, we're kind of accepting that those with disabilities will somehow or other miraculously be looked after by family and friends. What it really means is the state saves money on the benefits, knowing full well it's predominantly women who will give up their jobs, their careers and their lives in order to care for people they love, when it should be, in the principle of a welfare state, the decision of the whole community to do that. Let's be the party that advocates for justice for all those with disabilities and all those with disability needs, to end the poverty amongst those with disabilities. We can do that, you know. We can achieve that. And there's so much more that we need to be looking at. Education, overstressed, over-tested children, underachieving children because of the housing conditions they live in, the poverty that so many children go through, the way teachers have to dip into their wallets and handbags to provide food for children still within our society. We need an attitude to education, which we had in the 2017 and 19 Labour manifestos, which was about a national education service. A national education service with free education from cradle to grave, so that we benefit from the education and determination of all those to achieve things themselves. There's so much we have to do, and I hope that once the elections are through within your party, we then develop very rapidly a process, obviously, of establishing branches. That can be done and will be done very quickly, I'm sure. But we also need to develop the idea of policy formation. Look at the skill levels and knowledge we've got amongst these 60,000 people in education, in housing, in welfare, in environment and in international affairs. So we are that party that enables and gives voice to people. But it's also about youth. Young people have a bad deal. I've always been brought up with the idea that we should create a better world for the next generation, and the next generation will be better off than this generation. That's no longer the case. It is absolutely no longer the case. The generations now being brought up are being brought up with inadequate housing, high levels of debt, deep levels of stress, and a very encouraged sense of ultra-competitivity just to succeed in life. It's as though Margaret Thatcher has never gone away. The sharp elbows have never gone away. The austerity has now gone on for 15 years. Working class living standards are around 20% lower than they were in 2010, and that gap is getting bigger and bigger. We're a society of many billionaires and many millions of people living on the margins and in poverty. We're a society of food banks when we should be a society of equality. Let's make sure we never forget that in our activities, our organisation and the messages that we put out. So I want every one of your party branches to have a rule you take upon yourself, that every month, at least once a month, we have open public meetings and discussions with the community that we seek to represent. So they're mobilised, they're involved, and they're active on it. Internal debate is fantastic. The left love nothing better than an internal debate. They love nothing better than that. Trust me, I've been in all this since I was 18. I've been at lots of meetings. Some memorably in many ways, some memorably forgettable in other ways, but it is about how you reach out and how you enthuse people and how you educate people. Because we're in a very strange time in history. It's never been easier to find anything out. Just pick up your mobile phone, you can find out almost any fact you want. The problem is we then become a tick box society. You check on Google, oh yeah, that's right, oh, done. No. Not necessarily. It's not the whole story. It's not the cycle of history. It's not the full understanding of the philosophy behind something. And so it is about, in an unpatronising way, promoting education, promoting discussion of literature, history, poetry, music and ideas. It is about us being an inventive, inclusive, creative party and creative society. So we can be quite a big influence on the way communities and people think. And I'm really excited by the possibilities we've got of achieving that. I don't want to go on too long, but I've got to say something else as well in this. I've been horrified beyond belief about what's been happening to the Palestinian people. Not just since October 23, but for decades and decades before that. I've 9 times been to all parts of Palestine, also to Jordan, to Syria, to Lebanon, to Iraq, Iran, and so on. And every time I've been to Palestine in the past, I always thought, wow, it's bad and it's even worse than the time I came before. It is now abominable and appalling in every conceivable way. I receive a message almost every day from my good friend Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, who's an independent member of the Palestine National Initiative. I read his messages every morning, and you turn on the phone and think, oh, I know there's a message coming, I know it's going to be grim, I know it's going to be bad, but I've got to read it. He sent me one on Friday, which I read some of last night at the poetry event, so forgive me those that were at the poetry event. I'll read it to you if I may, Chair. The director of Al-Shifa Medical Complex stated that approximately 10,000 individuals remain missing beneath the rubble across the Gaza Strip. Of these, around 5,000 persons are unaccounted for, and their fate remains unknown. He further reported that 66 boxes were received yesterday from the occupying authorities, that means the IDF, containing only the skulls of deceased victims. In addition, the bodies of women were handed over with no information provided regarding the location or circumstances of their abduction. According to the director, some of the returned bodies showed signs of severe mutilation, including severed hands, while others had their abdomens surgically removed and subsequently restitched. These findings raise grave concern. He warned of credible indications of organ theft from the bodies of martyrs in the Gaza Strip, describing these acts as serious violations of international humanitarian law and human dignity. Doesn't that say everything in that message about what's happened to the Palestinian people, the genocide that's been committed against them? And all the while, this has been well known. The US pours weapons in an even greater quantity into Israel, and Britain has been complicit in the genocide by the provision of weapons, by the provision of parts, and by the provision of equipment for the F-35 jets. And so we march, we meet, we protest and we mobilise in support of the Palestinian people because we believe they should be able to live in peace and dignity. We march and meet to defeat racism within our society. Our marches are marches of love and unity. They're not marches of hate, and they should understand that. But we should also understand that the perpetrators of the genocide have to be brought to account. Through the Peace and Justice Project, we organised a Gaza tribunal held over 2 days in Church House in London, and we had 29 expert witnesses. Their report will be published next week, I believe, and then we're presenting it to the Hague group of countries in the UN that have agreed to abide by the ICJ and ICC decisions, and that will be in March in Amsterdam. We're doing that because we believe we should pull every lever we possibly can to help bring about justice to the Palestinian people. I can't be the only person in this room that doesn't believe a Trump plan of billionaires sitting around a table deciding on the future of Gaza when they want to build casinos and hotels on the rubble containing the bodies of Palestinians. The only people who should decide the future of Gaza and the future of their organisations, their country, their community, are the people of Palestine, not the governments of the rest of the world. So, we have much work to do to develop an international policy which is about peace, which is about justice, which is about environmental sustainability, and is not about developing a new generation of nuclear weapons, and use the Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference in April and May to call for the global ban on nuclear weapons so that we can rid the world of the danger and the scourge of nuclear weapons. And there's so much more. The peace we need in Ukraine, the peace we need in Sudan, the peace we need in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the social justice we need at home, and above all, the mobilization and hope and enthusiasm of people to bring about that change. That is what is going to bring about a real improvement in our society. So, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for what you're doing. It's our chance to bring a message of hope. Our chance to organise people together. Our chance to bring about unity all through the movement. All through the movement to bring about that social change. Disunited, we can achieve nothing. United, we can achieve a fantastic amount. When you go out on strike, you don't half go and the other half stay. You all go, because that's the only way you can win. Let's adopt that principle to our politics. We agree on a strategy, we agree on a policy, we agree on a determination, and we go out there and campaign for it, not just to win elections, crucial as that is. Winning elections is the product of the campaign, product of the community activity, product of the organisation we put forward. And you know what? We can do it, we can achieve it, and we will. Good luck, Scotland. Good luck, your party, Scotland. Thank you very much for inviting me here today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jeremy. What a fantastic start today to... Thank you so much. What a fantastic start today of conference. And just such an important reminder of why we're all here and why this party, your party, is so needed.